So good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. My name is Landon Rank. I'm the Associate Director with SB Act, and I'm joined by my colleagues Eric and Kai, also from SB Act, as well as a variety of other homelessness providers and partners from across the South County region. Um, so here today, we are here as a part of the Act on Homelessness Collaborative. This is a South County-wide network of homelessness service providers, people who've actually experienced homelessness, businesses, government agencies, community advocates, and others who are all partnering together to try and address homelessness issues and impacts throughout the whole South Santa Barbara County region. So we're really glad you could join us. Today's meeting is our quarterly, let's just share about everything going on related to homelessness in our area. So this is a good chance if you're new to these issues, just to learn a little bit more, or if you're well versed already, just to get caught up with what's going on now. So really grateful to have you all here. We've got a lot to talk through today. I wanted to just start and say, if you are kind of brand new to homelessness issues, there's quite a variety of ways to get started in learning about what all is going on. But I wanted to offer two big resources to start with. The first being there are two different pages that represent sort of our main homelessness coalitions that are happening throughout Santa Barbara County. The first one is our county-wide continuum of care. And this is hosted by the County of Santa Barbara. And if you go to their website, you'll see sort of the broader county-wide plan that's happening throughout all of Santa Barbara County, as well as a list of resources and service providers throughout the whole area. And then for this group, we're focused on just the South County area. And so you can view more information about us at sbact.org/AOH. Act on Homelessness, that's the name of this coalition. So I really want to encourage you, if you are just getting started on these, if you've heard the phrase nothing's being done about homelessness before, really encourage you to check out either of these pages to just start getting a primer on what all is being done throughout the county. Hopefully that provides a good starting point. I'm going to put those links in the chat window. And with that, I think one of the most useful things for community members to know is that we do have resource directories for your disposal. Both the cities of Santa Barbara and the city of Goleta have created directories that are specifically for community members, just to know, who do I call if I see an encampment, or if I see an individual who's clearly in need, or if I see someone having a mental health crisis. Obviously, sometimes 911 is the right number to call if it's an emergency situation, but other times it may be that there's another number you could call that will get the right resources more quickly. So I really want to encourage you to check these all out. The county also has put out a South County-wide directory specifically for all the resources that the person experiencing homelessness might be able to utilize. And so I'm going to just put, or I just put that link in the chat window there, but I really encourage you to check that out, maybe download or print any of these directories and help us to share them. We want to get the word out that there are a lot of resources available, and we need to make sure that we're using them and leaning into these services. For the city of Santa Barbara, we also have some little wallet-sized card versions that just have a couple of the most basic numbers along with a QR code to the larger directory. So if that's something you're interested in getting, please do feel free to reach out. You can either direct message Kai or myself, or you can email me, and I'll put the email address in the chat window. You will see some yellow boxes throughout this meeting. We are going to be sharing a lot of different action steps. And so I just want to encourage you to take those seriously. At the end of the meeting, I'm just going to be asking for everybody to post anonymously what action step they're hoping to take after today's meeting, because we love to just learn what are the ways that people are going to be stepping in. So as we get going, we're not going to take the time to have everyone introduce themselves, but I want to encourage you all to introduce yourselves in the chat window. We have a lot of different community members and service providers and people with lived experience on the call today. So I think it'd be great for us to just have a chance to at least say hello to each other in the chat. Now, with that, I want to start with just some updates from the region. Since our last quarterly meeting, the Faro Center has opened up in downtown Santa Barbara. And this may be new to some of you all, so I wanted to pass it over to my colleague Eric to share just for a few minutes about what the Faro Center is, and maybe some ways for you to get involved. So Eric?
Yeah, so the Faro Center is located at 621 Chapala between Ortega and Coda downtown. We're intended to be a one-stop shop for people experiencing homelessness. So we offer several services for people experiencing homelessness. We're really focused on getting people housing and also finding them jobs. Um, we're averaging about 40 people a day right now coming into the center and accessing services. A large chunk of those people, about 40%, are not in the system. So that I think has been surprising to us and I think also encouraging. Um, in terms of getting involved, we do serve food. Right now, we're doing warm meals Tuesday and Thursday. We are looking for volunteers to help both serve food and potentially provide food the other days. That is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you are interested in volunteering, you can see my email address there on the screen. Feel free to email me and I'll get back to you with ways you can help. But I'm happy to take any questions about the Faro Center right now.
Thank you. Any questions for Eric? Great. Well, thank you, Eric. We do encourage you, even if you don't want to volunteer, we encourage you to just come by sometime. We'd be glad to walk any of you around, give you a tour, so you can see the space and what's going on here. All right, so I think the topic that's been at the front of many of our minds in recent weeks, and I think that part of the reason why we have such a high turnout today is the discussion around this recent Supreme Court decision. So for those of you who are not familiar, the Supreme Court case is Grants Pass, and it's a discussion over the local government's authority to enforce restrictions around camping on public property. We know that things changed quite a bit, especially during the pandemic. There was a lot more people that were very visible and out in public because of the need to shelter in place. And then since then, there have been just some different kind of back and forths in the courts about whether local governments have the authority to enforce removing people without having adequate shelter. Um, and so wanted to give a chance just to hear from some of our local governments. We have representatives from the cities of Santa Barbara and Gallia with us today, just to talk about their cities' stances and responses, and just give a chance for us to have a little discussion about that. So I'm going to start. I see Chuck Flax on the call, and we'll start with Chuck, if that's all right.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's great to see so many folks here. In terms of Grants Pass, so the city of Goleta has a mix of policies. I mean, I think our city council and city manager are extremely sympathetic and compassionate about the needs of homeless people. And so there was not a sense on the part of our leadership that we needed to be tougher on homeless people in general. And in fact, the opposite. Goleta has a number of ordinances on the books that are pretty punitive and that give authority to law enforcement to penalize people for sleeping in their vehicles, for sleeping in public, for camping in public. And so it has been made clear to me through our meetings with city council and our leadership that there's no intention for Goleta to get any tougher on our homeless residents. And that's been echoed by our community resource deputy, who's actually, I think, here at the meeting, and he may want to make a comment on his own, Connor Warden. Goleta contracts with the sheriff's department, and we don't tell the sheriffs how to enforce our laws. So theoretically, it's possible that in a different political climate, there could be more punitive measures placed on homeless people. That's my concern. And given that our laws exist, that's still a concern. However, the current political climate here, the current leadership are saying that it's generally business as usual. However, It's also a concern. Fire danger is a real concern in Goleta. And Goleta did pass an ordinance this past year prior to the Grants Pass Supreme Court ruling to consider certain areas off limits for anybody camping or sleeping because of fire concerns. And that's primarily excuse me, it's primarily Elwood Mesa and the Lake Los Caneros. I'm sorry. So that's pretty much it. I mean, one way to look at it is that it's business as usual. Another way to look at it is that we want to cooperate with government agencies as much as possible to ensure that all the plans and thinking around preserving our compassionate approach to helping homeless people continue. So when Caltrans did a clearing, that was a concern for us. And in fact, we've seen the impact of the Caltrans clearing in our region with people. It was described as people moving around more, people not having a place to go. That's a concern. And that is a direct impact of the Grants Pass decision. So I think it's a moving target. I'm glad we're having this conversation. I think we all need to be vigilant in knowing what works to solve the problem of homelessness. We know we need to provide housing. We know we need to have shelter to get people into housing. We know we need to continue our outreach efforts, and we need to continue to be humane and compassionate with our folks who are homeless. So yeah, that's kind of my initial take on it. And more than happy to take questions and continue to discuss this here.
Thank you, Chuck. Why don't we give it over to Barbara in the city of Santa Barbara, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. And Landon, thank you for the opportunity to share. So our recent communications and shifts to our encampment response protocol is not because of Grants Pass. So I want everyone to know that our presentation to council a couple of weeks ago was actually in response to a civil grand jury report. So Santa Barbara County Civil Grand Jury did some research and analysis on the countywide encampment response program. And as a result of that, we wanted to take the opportunity to be transparent about our encampment response protocols and just educating people about how we engage, what we do, and really, again, just pointing everyone to the publishing and formalization of our protocol, because we were getting and kind of fielding a number of questions because of Grants Pass. So a couple of things. We've had a multi-department encampment response team since 2017. And because of that, our response has been really comprehensive citywide, especially during COVID, when we were able to kind of make those shifts as a result of policies that were changing to make sure that our unhoused population was protected as much as possible from the COVID pandemic. And then post-COVID, when we really had to address the increase in fire danger because of the extended years of drought, as Chuck was saying. So, thankfully, we've had this response team in play. We've been working together and coordinating across the city for several years. And we're able to make refinements as needed, really, with very short notice. So what we were trying to accomplish with, letting people know where our encampment response protocol can be found, and actually, I'm going to put it in the chat right now for reference, is just what Chuck said. Our approach is the same. We really want to make sure that we're engaging with compassion. We're able to connect those who are open and receptive to shelter and services to those services. We really go to all sorts of lengths to make sure that people's needs are being addressed. And now that we have the Faro Center open, that there is a go-to place Monday through Friday for people to receive this support. So our shifts in terms of noticing, so our minimum noticing has changed from 72 hours to 24 hours. This is primarily because of the areas where we're seeing reoccurring encampments and the impact that it's having on public health, safety, the environment. We're really noticing, again, areas that are heavily, I will say, just, observing and noticing encampments from our team. This shorter noticing one is actually compelling people to be more open to services. And so, again, facilitating that as needed. And two, we're able to address the public health and environmental impacts, as well as the public safety impacts as a result of these encampments in a much more timely way, which is just really helpful to our neighborhoods that are experiencing these impacts. So again, nothing has changed because of Grants Pass. All of this has been in process, but we really did want to be more forthcoming, more transparent about publishing our protocols so people could reference them, and making sure that we're available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm going to put both Chuck and Barbara in the spotlight, if that's all right. And I just wanted to go ahead and open it up for others to ask questions. There was a note in the chat about concern about whether it's compassionate to actually let someone live in encampment situations. Can either of you speak to just public health concerns and how those are addressed?
Absolutely. So, yes, I mean, I don't consider it humane or in any way beneficial to allow people to just stay in encampments on one hand. On the other hand, all the evidence shows and experience shows that criminalizing homelessness doesn't work. And so just an immediate example is the Caltrans clearing, where they forcibly remove people from their encampments. Even in the name, I mean, the governor's order talks about doing it in a humane way and being compassionate, and that there's public health and safety concerns, and that's why we're doing it. All it did was push people off that onto other people's property, either onto UPR, our property, Union Pacific, or into the city of Goleta or into the city of Santa Barbara. We that doesn't help people get out of homelessness. So our belief, our focus, and I think we share this with Santa Barbara, is that we're spending a significant amount of our funding on outreach. It's a very collaborative process with the county. We've opened up more shelter beds. Buena Tierra just opened, and we built more housing. La Posada just opened. There's more opportunities. It's not enough, but it's a much more humane approach to moving people out of encampments than just forcing them. And that being said, we're not, so Barbara raised the issue of the grand jury report. One of the recommendations of the grand jury report was that cities ought to provide sanitation and support to encampments, existing encampments. City of Goleta took the position that no, that isn't the appropriate response to encampments. And in fact, we won't be doing that. We will be, if there is public health and safety concerns with an encampment, we will respond. And we have cleared encampments both on public property and private property in collaboration with the property owners because of public health and safety concerns. So I think it's clearly it's a complicated issue. There's a lot of factors. But I think we've gotten pretty good. Barbara stressed the number of years we've been at this. We've gotten pretty good at managing this issue, at least locally. So we're not going to become Los Angeles or San Diego in the near future. We really do understand what it takes to work with this population and to support them and help them make a transition. Barbara, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll just emphasize, Chuck, you're spot on. I mean, the ideal scenario is what happened with La Posada, that we had a huge reoccurring encampment location, and we were able to facilitate that with county investment and city resources and agency coordination and collaboration to get folks where they need to be. So please know we're all committed to that ideal. And we have the same response to the grand jury report. We provide those levels of supplies, as needed, but it's not something that we would do regularly because we don't believe that people should be residing in these encampment locations for a variety of reasons. And I will say too, because our code enforcement team is also represented on the call today, we get voluntary compliance the majority of the time. So, folks understand, we help them. Usually we know them by name, we know their background, we help them kind of sort through their belongings. We're able to store belongings on their behalf if they accept case management services. And, we work through that scenario, and they know that, they're in an area that's just unsafe, for a variety of reasons again. So, we'll continue to facilitate that approach. And we will continue to invest and always advocate and always support partners that are making these interim and permanent housing commitments. Because like Chuck said, we can never have enough. And that's really what is causing the crisis of homelessness across the region. And the only way for us to be able to get ourselves out of it.
I want to call out a couple of partners. So the county received millions of dollars in encampment relief funding in 3 forms. So first it was the transit corridor. Secondly, it was in the waterways. And now they're doing focus on people living in vehicles. These are massive undertakings and tremendously compassionate efforts that involve mental health support, public health support, continued connecting with folks and forming relationships. It's been an impressive effort, and it's a reason why the county got funded 3 separate times, is that it's been very successful. We're proud to be partners with that. The other partner I want to call out are the sheriffs. And I don't know if I would have said this 10 years ago, but the sheriffs today, at least in Goleta, I can only speak for what I've seen, are doing tremendously compassionate work. They have a co-response team. So if someone has a mental health crisis or is in a drug or alcohol, poisoning or crisis situation, it's treated in a very humane and non-punitive way. And I don't believe that our community resource deputy has issued, any citations just for violating, sleeping in public or anything like that. It's, if someone has trouble with law enforcement, it's because of criminal behavior that they've done in the past or currently doing. But that our sheriffs have served, for better or worse, as first responders in a real compassionate way with our population, and have helped people get out of some pretty dangerous situations, probably saving lives. And so, I just want to thank them and I'm really proud of the work that we're all doing collaboratively to bring these different resources together.
And I have to do a similar shout out as well, because our police chief and our community action team, which is now 7 days a week, our co-response team is now 7 days a week. Not only do they know, with a level of specificity, the folks that we're engaged with, but they even go out of their way to have the officer that has the best rapport, with folks that we're dealing with in any given moment to respond with the team. So it's really incredible, the communication that we have now. And again, the lengths that we go to as a team to exhaust every option we have available to us before enforcement is that last resort.
So let's open it up. Please, if you have any questions, please use the raise your hand feature, or do the best you can. If you can't do that, then just chime in. Any other questions for Chuck and Barbara? All right. Thank you both. I appreciate you making some time to talk with us about this. And this will be an ongoing conversation, certainly. I do see a question.
Later,
sorry,
there
that
is a
just popped
question
up in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is
question
downtown
about
Santa Barbara too.
This is true in Goleta too. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, across the board. And so actually, the South County Collaborative, and Landon will speak to this in a little bit, actually had a common goal to address, 15 of the highest acuity need individuals that we were seeing, to be really considerate about case management and getting them the referrals and the resources that they need, just for this reason. Because we know not only are they in desperate need of the support and the attention and the medical care and the behavioral health support, but it also impacts, the feeling of safety that people have in their neighborhoods and other public areas. So for us, the County Department of Behavioral Wellness, as well as our other mental health supports, Mental Wellness Center in the city of Santa Barbara, our communication and coordination is excellent, better than it has been in years. But it's staffing capacity. One is there, is not enough staff to be able to address the high acuity of need we're seeing across the region. And so they're continuing to invest in that and continuing to expand and refine their programming and refining their response. But the second piece of that is that a lot of these services are voluntary. So there has to be an openness and receptivity on behalf of the individual to pursue. And a lot of the time we don't get this receptivity. So if there is an enforcement action that's taken place because there is criminal activity associated with their substance abuse disorder or behavioral health disorder or both, then there's programs once they're in the system that the probation department provides with their holistic defense system. There's still other opportunities that they're getting support that they need, even if they're part of the system, but even preventing them from being part of that system. We need to prioritize where our referrals are. And I know Chuck and his team have created a by name list. We've created a by name list in our high priority regions on the east side and downtown corridors and some of our West Beach areas, because we really try to elevate the people who are most in need to help facilitate those referrals to county departments and agencies and the multidisciplinary response team. So Landon will speak a little bit to that later in terms of how we're doing that, how we case manage the high acuity needs that we're seeing and what outcomes we've been able to achieve in the last year. But that's, I'll say the Cliff Notes version of the story that we deal with day to day on addressing mental health needs. But Chuck, anything to add there?
I would echo everything Barbara said in terms of the city of Goleta. The thing that I find most frustrating about this situation is that it's really not just a homelessness situation. I think what we experience in our day to day are people on the streets behaving erratically or potentially violently or seeming threatening, and they may not be homeless. I mean, that's the thing. It's what we have in this country is a mental health crisis. Governor Newsom and the legislature have created both resources that are flowing now to our Department of Behavioral Wellness through Proposition 1, and also a new law that allows for something that didn't used to exist in recent times, which is if someone is gravely disabled. I mean, the term gravely disabled means what you're referring to, what you're experiencing. They seem disabled. They seem like they're not okay, and something needs to be done. So that definition, that what they call the eligibility for service, is really subjective. It's up to care people. It's up to law enforcement. Everybody has to kind of come together on it. And if the person is not deemed to be a danger to themselves or others or gravely disabled, then they typically don't do anything unless the person wants help. What's changed is the law is now broader. So we may see opportunities now for more forced treatment. This is beyond mine and Barbara's levels of expertise. This is something that the Department of Behavioral Wellness is in the process of really developing. They're building up their capacity. They're using additional resources. They're trying to create a system for managing what does appear to be a crisis of people on the street behaving erratically, scaring us a little bit. And the tragic thing is many of them probably in a more lucid time would be horrified. They want help too. So how do we make that next step? That's a challenge to local government. It's a challenge to all of our service providers. This isn't just a homelessness issue. And so we recognize that some of the people who are homeless are like this. There are also people who are housed, who are having these experiences. So it's a separate and connected issue that I think we're pretty aware of and wanting to work on. And I do think some exciting developments are happening through our local treatment providers. I know telehealth is now part of telehealth as a contractor that was brought in. They weren't here in South County. They now are in South County. So we're seeing more and more mental health resources being brought to bear. And the hope is that we'll start to see improvement.
And I do want to be clear, if an individual is trespassing on private property, that is a call to the police department.
Absolutely.
And be really specific that that's the crime that is occurring, so that there's a level of timeliness in their response and they're able to protect your safety and your property. So I just want to clarify that we always encourage people to make that call, because that is really important to protect yourselves and others.
And then I see Liz Stotts from the city of Santa Barbara posted the county's 24-hour crisis response and service access line. So this would be for maybe a non-emergency situation where there is no threat to yourself or others. But
And if you have some awareness that it's a behavioral health issue that you're observing, you can specifically request the co-response team in the city of Santa Barbara to respond, as well as outside of the city and the county jurisdiction as well.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you both. Appreciate you making time. And I'm actually going to keep Barbara on for a second. I don't know if I should spotlight Liz as well, but we're going to talk a little bit about a voting opportunity within the city of Santa Barbara. So there is, as many of you know, a forthcoming revenue decrease that is anticipated throughout various municipalities in the region, not just the city of Santa Barbara. And Barbara can speak to that a little bit, but part of the response is the development of a ballot measure to potentially increase some of the revenue coming into the city towards necessary or essential city programming. So I'm going to turn it to Barbara to speak on this a little bit, and then I can share a little bit more about why we're talking about this here today.
And Landon, I do want to emphasize there's quite a few measures that will be on this ballot asking for support. So the county is looking to increase their TOT. That will also go to help maintain essential services. There's several statewide bonds that are going to address, really comprehensive climate issues and school related issues. So I just encourage everyone to go through that voter education booklet and inform yourself as much as you can about these measures and bonds, as you look to cast your vote. So at this time, we have, a very comprehensive kind of web page on the City of Santa Barbara website that just provides kind of an impartial analysis on Measure I. So Measure I would enact the Santa Barbara Essential Local Services Measure. So this measure would increase the city's sales and use tax by 0.5% from 8 3/4 to 9 1/4. The measure was placed on the ballot by unanimous vote of the City Council, and the measure does require approval by a majority of the voters voting on the measure. So you might have seen too in a recent city council meeting, they actually created a resolution to prioritize the issues that would be addressed by this additional revenue. But I'll share with you in general, the top priorities are maintaining 911 emergency, fire, paramedic, and police response and services. And then contributions to the city's local housing trust fund, improving housing affordability, and addressing homelessness. It also includes maintaining library services, keeping public areas and parks safe and clean, stormwater protection, improving natural disaster preparedness, retaining local businesses and jobs, and of course, meeting the budgeted expenses for general city services. So this is a general fund measure specifically to maintain essential local services. So again, all the funds collected under the measure, if it is supported by voters, would be used locally for the benefit of the city of Santa Barbara and its residents and businesses. So there's no allocation that comes from that specific tax increase that would go statewide. It would just be for the city. So that's kind of general background. And as Landon has here, information on our website, just again, educating voters about what the measure is, the estimated amount of revenue that would come into the city as a result, and again, what those priority issues are that this revenue will be worked to and allocated to address.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, so we wanted to bring this to everyone's attention because it is related to homelessness services in the city of Santa Barbara. It's certainly not specific to homelessness services. Barbara mentioned there's a lot of different things that this funding would be used towards, but it is a significant amount of revenue that the city is hoping to sort of make up. And so just wanted to put that in front of everyone, encourage you to educate yourself, read up on this, and really do make time to get out to the polls in November. Any questions for Barbara or myself? Okay. Thank you. So actually, before we go to our broader South County homelessness update, I wanted to give a chance for our partners from the Safe Parking Program to just share briefly about everything that's going on there. Many of you may have heard there was a very large grant through the state of California that was given to Santa Barbara County just earlier this year, for $8 million specifically to address vehicular homelessness throughout Santa Barbara County. And so you might be curious, all right, so what's being done with all that money? And so I've asked Cora Patton from the Safe Parking Program to be here today just to talk a little bit about all the work that they are trying to do now that they have this large project underway.
Thanks, Landon. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. I just wanted to give you guys an update about the Surf 3 project that started in June of this year. And we were tasked with resolving about 21 encampments, which included about 300 people. So with that, we are providing outreach. We're doing intensive case management. We're offering financial assistance. We're also offering rapid rehousing services. What a lot of people don't know is that these encampments were previously identified, and the vehicles and the encampment locations are kept confidential. And because they were previously identified, we're unable to serve anybody else unless they were on that particular list. So once we have dealt with all of those people, then our hope is to be able to expand and take in new people. But a little bit of the progress that we've made is we've enrolled 81 people since June 19. Let me get my little stats here. 19 individuals were Mid-County and Lompoc. 15 individuals were North County and Santa Maria. 15 individuals were in South County, all but Santa Barbara, and that includes 7 individuals in Goleta, and then 32 individuals were in the city of Santa Barbara. So we've been able to provide significant funding for like car repairs and documentation. And then also we can provide, we're able to move people into temporary shelters, whether that be a hotel or whether that be space in an RV park. So I think we've made a good, we've taken a good chunk out of it, and we're just continuing to do it. We have a fabulous surf team that's out there constantly doing a lot of outreach and getting people enrolled as quickly as we can. And we're just moving forward.
Thank you, Cora.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to really keep this project in front of everyone because this is one of the fastest growing populations experiencing homelessness in our whole region, not just in our cities, not just in our county, but throughout all of California is people living in their vehicles. And so we have the preeminent program that's addressing vehicular homelessness, the Safe Parking Program right here in Santa Barbara County. It was founded here. And we're very grateful for that, but we want to make sure that you all are aware how much is being done right now to try and address some of those issues. So just want to open it up if there's any questions for Cora.
Hey, Cora, this is Chuck. What's the total South County goal? Do you know that in terms of the number of people served? You're on mute.
There we go. We had identified approximately 300 individuals, Chuck, and however, a lot of those individuals were identified with their license plate. So what we're finding out is individuals had multiple vehicles. So it's that number of 300 is slightly reduced, but the goal is to get all of those people housed.
And that's just South County.
That is, well, it's South County and North County.
Oh, the 300 is your total.
I think we're 175 is the goal in South.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
Great.
get that part. Yeah, South
Yeah.
County.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
And then can you talk about what vehicular homeless encampment means?
Well, the vehicular homeless encampments were areas where people were parking their vehicles, uh, oh, multiple vehicles all at the same time. And so, like I said, we're keeping those locations fairly confidential. I think most of the people here know where those parts are. But that was just, locations where it tended to be, we were getting reports from community members that there were a lot of people parking in their vehicles. And that's what we were responding to. I don't know if that answers your question, but basically they're just the areas that were identified where there were a lot of vehicles that were parking on a very consistent basis, whether that be a regular RV or a regular vehicle. There could be one person in the vehicle, there could be multiple people in the vehicle, but it was just a culmination of multiple vehicles in one particular area. And that would count as an encampment. And they identified 21 encampments throughout the county.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Jose.
Oh, sorry for coming in late. I thought it was going to be tomorrow. As some of you already know, I am formerly homeless. I became homeless twice after 9/11, and then after living in Phoenix for over 8 years. I went out there in 2003, came back in 2011, homeless again. And it was rough. It was really, really rough. And each time I would go to Alameda Park there to ask for help, with the Kumbaya homeless advocates, as I call them, the Kumbaya back then, and still do sometimes. But each time I would ask for help, and very condescending, they said, "Well, we're so sorry. There's just nothing we can do for you." And due to the fact I did not have any alcohol issues, I did not have any drug issues, not really any mental issues. The only thing for years as a kid, I suffered depression. I'm doing better with that now. But it was just like
Jose,
yeah.
can I interrupt you for just a second?
Sure.
Right now, we're just talking about vehicular homelessness, but we
is
will
it?
have some more time for more general questions later. Is that okay
Okay.
if we put
Oh.
that to later?
Okay, sorry about that. I had no idea.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
No, thank you.
yeah. Okay. Well, I have met quite a few of them, and they're, so a lot of them were pretty nice. The ones that I have met. Okay. I apologize for that. Okay.
And
No, you're all good.
and I think
We'll have some more time later.
Yeah, and Landon, I think too later, from Jose's long-term experience, things have been different in the last several years. We've had many more resources available to us than ever. We've had many more housing units open, both interim and permanent housing, than ever. This is more that we've had to address encampments, almost $16 million over the last 4 years, soon to be 6 years, that we've never had before. So, I think back in the day, there were absolutely much less opportunities than we have right now. So I think as we share and reach out to people and engage with people in need, really the word on the street is we have resources to help. And if you're open and receptive, we want to get you on that pathway.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and I'm sorry that I apologize for that.
No,
Okay.
you're all
right.
good. I just want to make
All
sure we
right.
get to all the presentation. I appreciate it though, Jose.
Okay.
And I'm glad you're here to share
All
from
right.
your experience.
Okay. All right. Well, okay. I'll be on for a little while longer here, and then I'll just talk
Great.
right. All right. Okay.
All right. So we did want to take a little bit of time today to talk specifically about this South County Collaborative. We started off the meeting today just saying that's what this meeting is a part of. And so I just want to share a little bit about what that is and what our South County specific goals are that we're trying to achieve. So you can read more at the sbac.org/AOH website. I put the link in the chat window there for you. But this is a partnership between the cities of Carpinteria, Goleta, Santa Barbara, and the county of Santa Barbara, as well as a variety of nonprofits, businesses, community advocates, and people with lived experience of homelessness are also a part of this. And so this is supposed to be a broader cross-sector collaborative uniting together to figure out how can we all work to address homelessness together, because we know that we can't just solve it with one organization alone. So I wanted to just name, these are our collaborative participants and steering committee partners that are a part of our group. We have 25 different stakeholders represented across 5 different sectors. So you can see we've got government, nonprofit, philanthropic, business, and people with actual lived experience of homelessness that are involved. So it's important to us to stress that this is cross-sector because we realize that each sector kind of has its own biases and the things that they want to see done. And so we want to make sure that what we're doing is including everybody in the solutions. So with a steering committee made up of all those different stakeholder groups, we came up with some goals that we are working to achieve by the end of this month, actually. We created these about a year ago. And so this was our 1-year plan was to address 4 different areas, and you can see them listed here: behavioral health, vehicular homelessness, and then public narratives around homelessness. And we'll talk specifically about each of these goals as we go along, but these were identified by interviewing all of the different steering committee members and finding out what are your priorities, what are the things that you think are most important for us to focus on. And these were the priorities chosen. So we're going to start with behavioral health. I know that came up just a little earlier on the call today. So this group at the beginning for its goal identified 15 of the sort of top high acuity behavioral health individuals experiencing homelessness throughout South County. Of course, there are more than just 15, but we wanted to try and identify some of our top heavy hitters in the region. That there are some of the people that likely you have seen out and about. They tend to be the people that are more visible for one reason or another. And our goal was, can we try and get some positive outcomes for at least half of that list of 15? So for at least 8 of those individuals, can we get them either into housing or into a behavioral health program and enrolled where they're stable? Can we also help them get enrolled with benefits through the CalAIM program? And so we've been working on this over the course of the year and really focusing on these 8 individuals who we won't name today to protect their confidentiality. But I am pleased to share that 9 of those individuals have gotten to the point where they are in a positive place. Now, that's not the end of the journey. As many of you know, we need people to actually stay in that stable housing or stay enrolled in that behavioral health program. But we do have 2 individuals that actually have been either in housing or a behavioral health program for the last 60 days and have been able to remain there. Outside of that, then we have another 4 individuals that are either in housing or interim housing, like shelter or one of the tiny homes cabins projects. We have another individual who is enrolled in an inpatient behavioral health program, and then 2 individuals who got connected with the CalAIM benefits program. So they have a lot more access to resources for housing. So we're excited to share this just to say, we know that if we focus our resources on the people who are most vulnerable, and if we are aware of what their needs are, we're more likely to be successful. And so I'm just excited to share that these people are moving forward. We have another 4 individuals that are in progress. Like maybe they're enrolled in a program, but they're not quite participating fully yet, or they're on their way towards getting into housing. And then there are still some individuals that we're working on trying to connect with for one reason or another. We're not able to connect them with the services at this time. So this is an ongoing project. All right, goal number 2 was around vehicular homelessness. When we spoke with the Safe Parking Program about a year ago, one of the biggest issues was that there was a significant lack of RV parking for overnight RV parking. We know that many individuals sleep in smaller cars, but when it comes to those larger oversized vehicles, it's hard to find places to actually go. And so our goal was to try and increase that number by 25%, increasing it from 37 to 47. And there's a little bit of nuance to this, so I'll talk a little bit more about it. But we sort of got derailed in the most positive sense when this $8 million grant was awarded that Cora was talking about earlier. And so we sort of had to hit pause on our progress just to say, hey, let's make sure that whatever we're doing towards this goal is actually aligning with what they're trying to do with this $8 million grant. We did get the go ahead to keep working on it. And so we've developed a letter that we are in the process of distributing out to different faith communities and nonprofits to ask them about using their parking lots. And we do have a list of different lots that we're asking. There are many lots that have already been asked, and either they said no or they said yes. And so we don't need to ask them again. So we worked with the Safe Parking Program to identify the lots that need to be asked at this point. So there is sort of an ask in this for you all. We would love for support in reaching out to some of these faith communities and nonprofits. And as I said, they're not all on the list for one reason or another. So I encourage you that if you are in contact with a faith community or a nonprofit leadership somewhere, if you're friends with somebody who goes to a faith community and you think they might be open to hosting a safe parking lot overnight, we encourage you to reach out to us and we can share the letter with you. This is something that the Safe Parking Program is staffing and they have insurance for it. So it requires very little on the part of the lot owner themselves, other than just being willing to provide the space overnight. So you can see sort of because we've been derailed, now we're getting back on. At this point, we have increased the number of spots by about 4. I say about 4 because I'm not clear yet if it's either 4 or 6. And then we have another 6 spots that are in the process, like it's faith communities that are talking with their elder boards to decide whether they would like to move forward with us. So we still have a little ways to go. The other thing to consider is that there are some parking lots in use now that are going to be developed for other uses in the future. And so they will no longer be able to be used for safe parking. So we're hoping to make up an additional 20 spots at some point. So again, there is some urgency to this. We really want to see these individuals have a safe place to go and so that they can get connected to case management and housing. And we really want to take advantage of the fact that we have this major $8 million grant right now for this purpose. So we really encourage you, if you're in contact with anyone that owns a lot that you think might be amenable to this kind of thing, please reach out to us. All right, and then goal number 3 is around public narratives of homelessness. So the main public narratives that we are trying to address with this goal are 1, the notion that nothing is being done about homelessness. And then 2, just trying to humanize the issue more, because we know that we see a lot of statistics and we see a lot of headlines, but we may not actually know kind of all the different nuances of the homelessness experience. So our goal was to try to increase the number of stories around homelessness issues in our area in these 3 media outlets, KEYT, Newshawk, and Santa Barbara Independent, over the course of 1 year, increase them by 15%. Our other goal was to try to increase the amount of positive narratives that are being told. And again, like I said, we're really trying to emphasize that, yes, things are being done about homelessness, just trying to kind of address that myth in particular. We don't want to sugarcoat things. And so we want the negative headlines to come out when we know there are things that we need to work on, but we want to make sure that the positive work is being reported as well. So the way we did this was we focused on the headlines, because as it turns out, 60% of Americans do not read past a headline of any given news article. And where this is a problem is when you see 2 headlines like this. So this came out, I think, in June of this year, and it's the exact same story, but through 2 different media outlets. And you can see the story on the left says that the county is going to spend $6 million on ending homelessness. Story on the right says the county of Santa Barbara was awarded $6 million. So you could see how one headline might provoke a more angry reaction, whereas one headline might provoke maybe a little more hope or positive reaction, even though it's the exact same story. So this was our goal, to try to share the headlines about what is being done in the community in a way that's helpful and maybe helps direct people about how they can take action too. So here are our results so far, with just a few more weeks left to go. We did see a significant increase in the amount of stories about homelessness, I'm pleased to share. So a 28% increase from last year. So this is huge, and it speaks to the efforts of everyone to just try and get the word out about everything being done about homelessness. In terms of the positivity of those headlines, we did see a 10% increase. We used what's called a sentiment analysis to analyze all of the headlines to see sort of where they land on a scale of -3 to +3. And so you can see so far we've gotten about a 10% increase in positivity on those headlines. So still some work to do. And I think one of the ongoing challenges I want to name is just how much homelessness jargon there is. I think many of you on the call are already well educated, but there are plenty of people out there who might read, for example, these 3 headlines and have no idea that any of them has anything to do with homelessness solutions. So part of our ongoing work is to keep trying to figure out, how do we really educate the community about real things that are happening with homelessness and about what is being done, what's not being done, what remains to be done, et cetera. And there is a part 2 to this goal around public narratives. Part 2 is that we really want for community members to actually be able to direct people who are experiencing homelessness to resources as needed, and to be able to call for help to the right numbers when needed. So one of our goals was, we want to reduce the amount of calls to emergency services, like to 911, if it's not an emergency situation related to homelessness. For example, if it's just a person who's experiencing a mental health crisis, but they're not presenting a threat to themselves or others, we would rather that they call, for example, the access hotline that Liz put in the chat window earlier. So our goal was to try to reduce the amount of 911 emergency calls and increase the amount of non-emergency reports to the cities. And this one we're still having some trouble with, I want to name. So we have seen a decrease in calls to 911 from 835 to 802 calls per month. This is not 15% though, this is only about 4% decrease over last year. So we'd like to see more. And then we have not seen much of a change at all in terms of the average reports to the city staff, who can then actually, talk to the nonprofits and get connected to services. So we really want this to happen. We want people in the community to be reporting issues related to homelessness to the appropriate channels more. And right now, the numbers are not reflecting a significant change. So with that in mind, I do want to just throw this out there, that if you have thoughts about this, about ways to educate the community about who to call or when to call, we would really love for you to share those ideas and thoughts with us. We've created a little chat, sort of a chat board that you can share anonymously. And I'm going to put those links in the chat window in a minute. But also, I just want to put out again, there are all these different resource guides. We have those, like I said, those little wallet-sized cards. We really want your help to share those out. You can print those from the website, sbac.org/AOH. We can also figure out ways to get them to you. But again, we just really need everyone's help to spread this information out into the community. I see Liz from the city of Santa Barbara also put the link where individuals in the city of Santa Barbara can report individuals in need or an encampment, that kind of thing, so that the right services are directed to them. So I'll put that link in the chat window in just a minute. So actually, I'm going to pause there and just stop and see if there's any questions. We're moving into this last month of our 1-year plan. And I would love to just open it up for anyone. I see a question about the old drive-in and the swap meet location in Goleta. Great question. We have been talking about that spot. So stay tuned. Other questions? And I'm going to put that link in the chat window right now. Yeah, Irene.
Hi. I've been reporting an encampment next to our park on Elwood Station Road for months, but nothing's been done about it. And as of today, the fence is still broken and people are still going on it. So who has the power to talk to the railroad?
Yeah, and Irene, this is a really interesting issue that she brings up. This is something we talk about a lot within our City of Goleta meetings, is that there are properties throughout the whole region that belong to the cities. And then there's also properties that belong to the railroad and properties that belong to Caltrans. And each one has jurisdiction over its own property. So it is tricky with some of those areas that are right against each other. Sorry, Chuck, you unmuted. I don't know if you wanted to say something as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, and I always appreciate Irene raising this issue because you have a national business, maybe even multinational, the Union Pacific Railroad, and they own a tremendous amount of property throughout the state of California as well as other states. And they have one person devoted to 3 states who is supposed to oversee concerns from residents and cities, et cetera, about what's going on their property. And isn't just homelessness activity. It's, there are train strikes. There are, other behaviors that happen that people are doing on their property. And then there's maintenance issues that Irene's pointing out about fences and gates being open. And, we report these things regularly that the Union Pacific has a website where you can report all of the incidents. I've also spoken to Congressman Salud Carbajal's office about it because they are the ones that regulate the behavior of the railroads. And unfortunately, at this time, Irene, there's no good news. I mean, I think what we have to do is keep raising it as you're doing and keep reporting it through the website. And I know this is an issue that impacts everyone who lives and has city or jurisdiction within the railroad corridor. And so I think it's just something we have to keep working on.
I think you name a good issue, Irene, which is that when it comes to some of those sort of like complicated areas, like right near railroad tracks or near highways, that there is probably going to be situations where the city is only able to do so much, or the county is only able to do so much. So that is part of the problem with sharing these resources with community members, is that they have to know all those nuances too. Otherwise, they may be very frustrated with the outcome. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I did write to Joan Hartman and she sent an official letter to the railroad. And this morning, Chuck Flack said the railroad said it was handled, but it wasn't handled. So it's still open. So
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can, except God, can maybe talk to the railroad. That's it.
Thank you. And I think Chuck put the link for reporting to the railroads there. So if there is someone who's near railroad property, that's where you're going to want to report that specifically. All right, Jose, go ahead. Jose, I think you're still muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Since the time that I got residency in April of 2015, and when I'm, bouncing around downtown on State Street or over on the east side, I still see a lot of homeless individuals that they're still homeless from the time that I was homeless, and they're still out there. There's this one individual that very quiet, keeps to himself, never caused any problems, and we've never spoken. And he's still out there. And I'm just wondering if he's one of the many individuals that refuses to help, because we all know a lot of homeless individuals who don't want to get housed. They don't want to deal with the rules and regulations and this and that, and they feel more free being out. So, well, being outside. So I'm just wondering what it's going to take, and which is not an easy answer, but what's going to take to help those who have been, out there in the streets, for the longest time, maybe even longer than when I first, became homeless. So that's just it.
Yeah, thank you. I think you bring up a couple of good questions and things we hear a lot. So one is that in many instances, people will share that they're not interested in moving into housing. There was a study done, I think it was a year ago in the state of Washington, where they interviewed people experiencing homelessness, and they said, if you had keys to housing right now, would you take it? And despite previous answers saying, yes, I feel free, I'm happy to be outdoors, 90% of the people said, yes, I would totally take the keys. So there is a sense, I think that where a lot of people will likely articulate that they do feel free, that they want to be outside. But I think we all know there's also just a human propensity to want to sort of protect your ego and say, no, this is something I'm choosing, even though it may not be really what you want deep down. Now, I don't want to speak for everyone's individual experiences, but I do believe part of the main issue when it comes to people who are not accepting services, that from what we're hearing more and more is that it's for one reason or another, they've gotten burned by the system. And I'm sure they may have contributed to it in some way, but also we know that sometimes the staff they work with are not the right fit to work with them, or something goes wrong with the housing, or something takes too much time and it just doesn't work out. And so I think what you're naming are the systemic issues that lead to people just saying, I don't want to get any services anymore because I've been burned too many times. Yeah, and I'll give it to Liz. I don't want to just monologue on this. Go ahead, Liz.
Well, just very quickly, because
Yeah.
There are many times, like many senior citizens, which I know one lady had passed away 2-3 years ago, and I approached her as well as many senior citizens, much older than I am. And I always ask them, don't you want to get a place of your own? And no, and the answer was they did not want anything to do with the system. So yeah, which I could never understand that. Okay, so that's it. I'm gonna lower my hand now.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to build on what Landon was saying. This situations like this require a lot of trust building by service providers, and anybody that has worked in this business for a long time, Chuck, Barbara, some of the other service providers that are on here know that sometimes it takes a lot of trust building with people that may have been burned by the system or have substance or mental health issues that prevent them from taking all the necessary steps to get into housing. Sometimes people are just on a wait list for a really long time just due to the shortage of housing options. So there isn't a one size fits all approach to a person. There isn't a one answer for all people to address why they're on the street, why they have been on the street for a long time. There are people that, all of us here that work on this business have like the one person that is on their wish list of people that they can help out, and sometimes making just the smallest amount of incremental steps towards helping that person is a big deal. Something as little as helping somebody obtain a birth certificate, or getting them even to say yes. There are many clients that, for the service providers, they'll just accept a cup of water or a snack, and that's as far as it goes. But then there'll be one day where they'll actually respond to how their day is going, and that is a huge step in that trust building process. So it's very nuanced, very challenging, and you always have to be grateful for the people that do the work out there to build these relationships and work with these people.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. Just a couple more things to talk about today. One being that we're in the process of developing some 3-year goals. We realize that we're pretty hamstrung if we only do 1-year goals year over year. We're not going to make a dent on the whole big picture of homelessness. We can help some individuals, but if we really want to make a bigger difference, we need to have a little more time to all work together. So I have been sharing this survey out, and I'm going to put it in the chat window again. We're asking community members and anyone who's a stakeholder in the community who cares about homelessness to fill out this survey so that we can identify what are the top community priorities related to homelessness. We want to develop some 3-year goals that are in line with what you all are most interested in seeing change in the community. So you can see kind of where the ranking is currently, but that doesn't have to be where it lands. So I encourage you to please fill out that survey in the chat window as we start creating these goals to take us through 2027. I see a question in the chat about, are there any plans in the works to create additional shelters focused primarily for families in South County? Yeah, this is a very real issue, and I appreciate you naming that. And I'm not currently aware of any initiatives to build shelters specifically for family, but I don't know if Chuck or Liz or anyone from the county is able to speak to that. Yeah, this is an ongoing issue. And so we encourage you, fill out this survey, maybe make a note about that for us, because we do want to keep talking about how can we build more shelters for that population? How can we also just support Transition House in St. Vincent's more in what they're doing?
I know Transition House just recently acquired a property for permanent housing for families through the assistance of numerous grants, including city support. I don't remember how many units there are on that, but there's always little hidden small projects that are in the works by organizations like the Housing Authority and Transition House.
This is Kathleen.
There's Kathleen.
I can speak to the new property that we recently placed into service. It is 10 units of transitional housing. We're using transitional housing for families and instead to expand our services instead of adding shelter beds, because it makes more sense programmatically for us to do that. We would certainly be interested in adding more beds, either transitional or permanent, if the opportunity availed itself to do more projects like that. We don't have any plans at our agency to develop more shelter beds because we think ultimately for families, they need a longer period of service of a different sort than what we can provide in the shelter. So we're just using that as initial entry into our programs.
Thank you, Kathleen. I'm really glad you're here today. The other thing too is that you can increase the number of shelter beds, and you can also try and decrease the amount of time people have to stay in shelter beds. So we really want to encourage everyone that to address family homelessness too, one of the big solutions will be having more affordable family housing too, because then, that helps Transition House to have a place to transition people to, so that they're not having to remain as long. All right. So I want to take us now to just a couple of upcoming ways to get involved. So there are several different events coming up. As a part of this Act on Homelessness Collaborative, we have different RAP meetings, regional action plans focused on specific hotspots throughout our South County region. So we have a downtown Santa Barbara RAP that meets once a month on Thursdays. We have an East Side RAP that meets twice a month. And then we have a Goleta RAP that meets once a month as well. So you can see the dates and times on there. They're all on Zoom. I really encourage you to join us if you're interested in hearing about homelessness in any of those regions, or sharing about, as Irene did, about specific areas that you're aware of that need some assistance. Please come and join us for one of those meetings. You can also find that info on our website, sbac.org/AOH. And then we also do a neighborhood walk once a month. So this next month, we'll be doing a walk focused on the waterfront in Santa Barbara, where we'll be walking in, talking with business owners about homelessness issues in that area, as well as just trying to engage some of the people who are experiencing homelessness right there. And then finally, our next meeting will be on December 9th at 12 p.m. on Zoom. But we're not done. I did share that I really wanted to try and get everybody to commit to taking some action today. So I am going to post this link that's on the screen in the chat window. You can also snap a picture with your phone of the QR code. Go ahead and fill this out. I would love to, or not even fill this out. All you have to do is type in one thing that you are going to do after today, one action that you want to take. So I'm going to pull up this this survey on our screen so that everybody can see. And I see some people have already filled out the other poll as well. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I would definitely love to hear people's feedback on best ways to make available, inform people of the available resources. That is something that, as a government staff, we would always appreciate hearing feedback on.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate those of you who are printing out resources, sharing them with others. Please feel free to just share the website, that sbac.org/AOH. The ballot initiative, that is really important. Voting is going to determine how our resources are spent in the city, or if we have the resources. So lots of options. I really want to encourage you all, if you haven't yet, go ahead and pick one to take an action on. If you can just do one this week, that's all we ask of you. I think with that, we'll close out today's meeting. I just want to say thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to leave these links in the chat window for a few more minutes if anyone still wants to fill anything out. And I'm going to put, you can see my email address is already there, so I don't need to put it again. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for your interest in these issues. And we look forward to seeing you at some of the RAP meetings. Take care, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Landon.
much.
Thank you, everybody.